I think it's Cavalier Eye. What do you think?
All right, so the couple things I want to tell you about the end of the year test. 3 things. First, you get a reference sheet on it, like you got in algebra, I think. So if you go to Google Classroom, and right here I wrote reference sheet for the test, you click on that link, it's going to show you what it's going to tell you. Okay, some of this stuff is kind of good because if you forget, like the pints and cups and gallons stuff, I always forget that, so it's on there. The feet, yards, pounds, all this stuff is kind of very good. They're going to give you the Sokotoa stuff. They're going to give you these 2 triangles. Okay. The nice thing about giving you those 2 triangles, you don't have to, you know, it's going to confirm that you're thinking. It's going to give you all of these formulas.
Oh my gosh.
And it's going to give you the distance formula, the quadratic. It's going to give you this formula right here. And it's going to give you this addition rule, which we have. This is probability, which we get to in the next chapter. So I'm telling you this because on today's group quiz, we haven't talked about how to solve for a sphere's volume, but it's right here.
I did that already.
Or a cone, or huh?
The final exam for you or the air test?
Good question. Second thing I want to tell you, I think all of this is kind of good. I think you want the good news or the bad news next?
No.
Bad.
So we can list it off
The end of course test is going to be your final exam.
What? Is that the bad? Hold on. So like.
That's supposed to.
I think that's the bad news.
The air test.
The air test is going to be your final exam.
What the heck? How do you?
Oh no!
Final exam then.
So there's only one condition. If it doesn't come back in time. So if there's literally, well, it's supposed to. It's supposed to get back like a week, 2 weeks before school ends.
Why do we always get our test scores the next year?
I get them back a lot sooner than you.
Why?
So.
Oh, because they need to fire them for the next year for fail.
Thank you. Yeah, they need to decide whether to keep me around. So, yes, that will be our final exam. So 2 weeks before the end of the school year, that's when we're going to decide whether we have to actually take a final or not.
Can you? That's good. You don't need to take 2 tests.
We're going to do all. We're going to do all kinds of stuff for preparing for the year test.
When is that? Like what day?
It is the last 2 days of April.
Hey, it's not on my birthday this year.
Last 2 days of April.
Sorry.
I think 29th and 30th.
What's the good news?
Rachel, you had a question.
Oh yeah, how do you know your score? Like going to I don't know.
Well, and how's that?
How do I know it?
Yeah, how do you grade?
How will I give you a grade?
Yeah.
So yeah, so there'll be a max score. Kind of. I'll create some kind of system for the grade. So basically, if you get a perfect on the test, then that's obviously 100%, A+. And if you get a 50% on the test, that might be a D-.
Say you won't fail us.
No, he'll fail us. Don't worry.
Get a 0 on the test.
50%.
Yes, you can fail that test.
I'm saying, can we fail like the final exam?
Yes.
Oh my God.
And we still get to move on.
This is. What's the
Maybe.
What's
Huh?
the
Also, for you guys who are, this is not the third thing I want to tell you, but for you guys who are crazy about your grade, we're going to, at some point this 9 weeks, figure out what you have to get this 9 weeks and what you have to get on the end of course test in order to get the grade that you desire. I did it for one person. They were like, I have to get an A, I have to get an A, I have to get an A. And we calculated that if they got a B- for the rest of the year, they would get an A for the class for the year. Okay? So usually we're in a little bit better shape. Okay?
So what's the good news?
The good news is you get a calculator on the whole test. Whatever calculator you want.
Yeah.
No.
You said any
Google.
You get a Desmos is the one that's automatically on there.
Yay!
Or you can use graphene is what I personally like, or you can use a red calculator. You can actually have all three if you want.
That's what I'll do, because half the time I can't figure out how to use my graphing calculator. Just
Yeah.
put addition on all of them, then make sure everything checks out.
Biggest thing on this test, and we're way ahead of me even having this conversation with you, is making sure you're right in the right mode. Okay, degrees versus radians. You gotta we'll probably be in degrees the whole test, but just in case something, we'll be in degrees the whole time. But if you I think calculators default to radians,
Yeah.
so just be careful.
So,
Okay, any other?
Yeah. So like, this is like kind of unrelated question. So are we like ahead or behind schedule?
We're in great shape.
That doesn't answer the question.
Yeah.
Initially, when I saw that I think we have 25 days left and we had 10 lessons, I was nervous because if you do the math, it takes us 2 days to get through one lesson.
That's 20 days.
And then 2 days for review and test. And there's 2 tests. So we had 20.
That gives us 1 day for review.
Yeah, if I did the math right.
So how
But I'm looking at these lessons, like today we're going to get an extra day because I didn't throw in a
So that's 2 days
work day.
for review.
Not that we care what Jackson teacher says because we're much better than Jackson
Well, if you don't care, why do you want to bring her up?
because we work very closely together.
Well, like,
What's their grade average and what's our grade average?
Great question, actually.
By the way, guys.
They have their teacher's just not as good as your teacher. I'll just put that out there.
where is your teacher at?
Yeah, but their teacher has. Hey, that's me.
Okay, would you rather have someone who can teach or someone with hair?
Both.
Okay, well she definitely has plenty of hair.
It's nice having a guy teacher every once in a while.
Yeah,
Because there's like no girl, there's always girl teachers.
that's right.
There's never a school that has like.
Can you stop the correcting?
I
I forgot what my point was with the Jackson.
hate your test so much.
They're fully grown women and they're half grown women.
So if you get like, I don't know what it goes, but it's like accelerated advanced. So basically, if you get only advanced on the test, then you get like an 80.
You're speculating my grading policy.
Yeah.
That's scary.
I don't think it's not gonna. I don't think you need to, I want you to take the test seriously, but I don't want you to stress about your grade on it.
They're not stressed.
How can we? Yeah.
You just do the best that you can.
If we
I
do
know,
this,
but even the best we can isn't good enough.
You got an A all year.
Okay, I cannot ask you to do better than you can.
Yes, you can.
Yeah, you can.
Nor can you set, nor
Yeah,
You
in
can
this
always do
class,
whatever
but
you
that
want.
doesn't mean I'll get 100% on this air test.
if Maddie has A pluses all year, if she takes the test and gets an F, will she still pass geometry?
she'll probably get an A for the year.
Thank you.
Yeah, but I still have an F on my final, which I
So
will
what?
be grounded for the rest of the summer.
You're gonna get an F, they just said that you can't fail the math.
Gets grounded over vacation.
Wait a minute.
I should have learned
You're
that.
sitting in
I
the
don't even
car.
believe you.
I'm always certain though, so I'm
Yeah.
not completely confused when we get
You,
Yeah.
At least I won't be as confused.
And if you want to relive this moment we just had, we have been recording, so.
Oh, neat, cool. Oh, nice. Oh, great. Okay. Let's get on with
All right. And if you want to find the moment when I say that I'm a better teacher than the Jackson teacher and share that with any of your friends, say, hey, watch this video at moment blah, blah, blah. That would be fun. You know what? Okay. I would never.
Why did we all get it
Why did we all find it and then get it right?
So Cavaliere's principle states that if you have two shapes that have the same cross-section at every level and the same height, then their volume's the same.
What does that mean?
Okay? So basically what it's getting at, so we need to know what oblique means. Do you know what an oblique shape is?
I don't
Okay.
know. Isn't it?
So oblique, so you know what a cylinder looks like.
Yeah.
Okay, an oblique cylinder is like tilted.
How many like numbers are this? So it's like 11-1, 11-2. How many are there in this? So it's 11-4. Thank you.
This is 11-2.
an oblique shape.
So an oblique shape means that it's, go ahead.
The top and the bottom are still like level with the floor, like what would be the floor, but the sides are tilted.
Yes, I like that analogy. So this is if I took a cylinder like this, okay, and then I did this.
Oh, the with the slinky. I always do that.
Yeah, so with the slinky. Now, if you fill your slinky up with rice, okay, and you manage a way to make it not fall out. If you take, this is what this is what this theory says. Then I can take my slinky and I can do this with it, and the rice should be able to stay in there. Okay,
And it doesn't change volume.
the volumes doesn't change. He even go as far as saying if you have a cylinder, a rectangular prism, a triangular prism, where they all have the same area, each cross section, and the same height, then all three of those shapes have the exact same volume. So I could fill it up with water, then fill up the next one with water, fill up the next one with water. Okay, the same exact amount of water. Okay. So that's all it says, is that you can either like shift the thing, or you can have three different shapes as long as at that particular place or all the places they have the same area, then cross section, they're going to have the same volume. And what they're going to do is they're going to give you like a weird shape, but you're going to have no idea what its volume is. And they're going to say, hey, it's got the same area at every cross section of this shape you do know. What is the volume of the weird shape? All you do is figure out the volume of the one and say it's the same. Yes?
So if you're like learning the definition of the downtime and reference back to it, what would you say like what's the definition for 3D shape or I don't know, oblique shape?
Technical definition or Mr. McConnell's definition?
Technical definition.
It's on Google. Okay. But really, it's just taking the shape, and it's. I really like Jonathan's idea because basically you have the top and the bottom, and all you've done is you've moved it. You haven't gone this way, but you've gone left or right with it. Okay. And then formula for, I'm going to set you up. What's the formula for volume of a rectangular prism?
Base.
Uh-huh.
Height times back.
Okay. And 7th grade teachers, we hate that they teach you that in 6th grade, that it's length times width times height, because that only works for rectangular prisms. But if you know
What?
who are you looking at? If you know a better formula, now they use capital B. What do you think capital B is here? It means the whole base, the base area. Okay. This works for cylinders. This works for rectangular prisms. This works for any prisms. Okay. If you can figure out what the base is, the area, and then times by the height. So in this situation, it would be length times width, then times the height, which is the formula you learned. But we wish that you would also learn that if you can find the area of this circle, pi r squared, and then just times it by its height. If you can find the area of anything, the base, then you just times it by the height. Okay. So basically, because it's a whole bunch of those things just stacked up on top of each other. Okay. So the only thing, and then they do things to kind of trick us. In this question, this first one, what's weird? Can anyone point out what's kind of off on this one?
It doesn't give us the height.
Okay, it does give you the height.
Well, that is not, doesn't show 90-degree angle.
Let me ask you this question. What is the height of this thing?
4.
That is not the height we use.
6.
Not the height. 2. The height is the distance between the bases.
Where's the base?
It's 6 and 4. It's that
Six
triangle.
times. 6
So let me, okay, so basically to use the formula we just learned, we have to realize that this has been tilted on its side, okay? The formula that we would use would have told us that we have a triangle, okay, and then we're going to raise it up by 2, okay, where this would be the bottom. So when I say it's the height, it's really, better word would be the distance between the bases.
Does it really matter though? Because it's multiplication. They just multiply all three of them.
It doesn't matter except when we start talking about like cylinders, and you just got to realize, for example, in this case, you're probably going to get away with it, but in some cases you're not.
Well, cylinders you can tell it's
Right. But my point is this is really our base, and this is really our kind of our height.
So do we not have to deal with the wood?
So the question is, what is the area of our base, which is a triangle?
24.
So the area of that is 12,
12 times.
okay, feet squared. So then the volume of our shape is 24 feet cubed. And the question asks, needs to store 20 feet, cubic feet of firewood. Can they use this? The answer is
So we don't have to deal with this holding it. We just have to imagine that it can, but it doesn't worry about the width of it.
correct.
Okay.
I mean, it's a strange question because you would want to cut, and I don't, if you don't know this, typically they cut fire when you buy firewood. It's all the same length. Mark, what was your question?
Why is the area of the triangle 12?
Base
Yeah.
times height divided by 2. So the answer to this one is yes. Again, the trick here is it's on its side. Okay, to make this simpler, they could have laid it down. Okay, so this one here, a quarter has a diameter of 24.26 millimeters and a thickness of 1.75 millimeters. What is the volume of $10 worth of quarters?
Well, it's multiplied by 40.
Okay, so there are going to be, is that what you're going to say, Rachel? So the shape, what shape does quarters make? Cylinder.
Very, very small cylinder.
But we're going to have how many of them?
4.5 times wood times.
So if this is the thickness, okay, and $10 is 40 quarters, okay, then how, somebody do this for me with a calculator, 40 times 1.75. 70 exactly?
40 times 1.75.
70. I like how he did it with a calculator.
You didn't need a calculator for it.
Okay. So that's 7 millimeters tall. We got to be careful because they told us the diameter is 24.26. We don't really want that. We want what?
The radius
The radius. So the area of our base
is pi r squared.
is pi r squared.
So equals pi, 12.13.
Mm-hmm.
How did you get 12.13?
Because our diameter is that, so I cut it in half. Does that make sense?
That's assuming